Hi, my name is Stephen Weidner. I'm a certified athletic trainer at IBJI Illinois Bone and Joint. A couple weeks ago we discussed lateral movements. Today we're going to talk about deceleration, some real basic drills you can do with your athletes and patients in the clinic in a small area. First two things that we always look at before we start doing any deceleration drills with our patients to make sure they can do them safely. One, we'll have them do an overhead squat. You can have them hold a dowel or stick overhead, and you just have them do double leg squat as deep as they can. Watch to make sure they're loading symmetrically, they're not favoring one side or shifting their weight to one side or the other. If they're shifting their weight over a basic double leg squat, they're definitely going to shift their weight a lot when you get to higher levels, sprinting and having to stop and decelerate. The other drill we'll do is a vertical drop test from a box. You can use a basic 6-inch box or a step, anywhere from 6 to 12 inches is usually good. We'll have them hop off and land. So they jump, land, make sure they can land symmetrically, make sure that they can load each side pretty evenly, and then make sure they're getting decent depth to control some of that deceleration. So two real quick drills to make sure they can decelerate safely. This is a 3-cone deceleration drill. Again, you can use in a small space. This is one of the first drills I'd introduce when you're talking about deceleration with your athlete to make sure they can do it effectively. To start off, I would just have them number the cones, 1, 2, 3. And I'd start off just by having them go to the first cone, then the second, and the third cone, so they don't have to react. And all you're going to do is have them go 50-60% for the first time. If it looks good, you can progress it to a sprint. So they're going to run to the first cone, break down, get low, tap, come back, and then they run to the second cone, break down, tap, come back, then the third cone, break down, tap, come back. Same concept, making sure they're getting low, they're symmetrical, one side's not being favored more. I like to have them touch the cone too, just to ensure that they're staying low and bending at the knees. You'll see a lot of athletes who can't do this will cheat and they'll bend forward at the waist instead of loading with their glutes and their hamstrings too. The other thing when you're doing this, we cue our athletes to sink back into it a little more. Now, from a performance and injury prevention standpoint, you don't want them back all the way on their heels because then they're going to be off balance when they're in the game. But you don't want them coming flying forward either, because then you're going to get all that anterior translation, and from a performance aspect, the athlete's going to go right past it. Another way you can make this a little more advanced, you can number the cones like we talked about, and then you can make them react to it. So the therapist or the trainer can stand on the other side of the cones and yell out a number. As they're going, they have to react, break down, back pedal. So say the trainer yells 2, break down, plant. Whatever the trainer wants, they can yell out another number so that person has to go right back to the next cone. Fatigue them, get them tired, watch them break down. And then lastly, to make it much more advanced, I always recommend making it as sport specific as possible. It's amazing with a lot of our athletes how much they break down once you add in multiple objects into the scene and other cues with it. So, and a soccer ball, a basketball, you can do it with a football player. For example, a soccer, say I got 1, so I'll sprint to 1 and break down. Ball comes in, 1 touch back, have sprint, turn, plant, and then come back to the next cone and yell out. Keep going, keep going. You can do this with a football player if they need to break down laterally and then go in for a tackle. You can do this with a basketball player if they have to kind of close out at somebody. You can be as creative as you want, but just remember, really make sure they're engaging their glutes and their hamstrings, sinking back into it, loading symmetrically, and not getting that too much anterior translation on that tibia when they're coming flying forward. Called the sprint, decel, and jump. So what we'll have our athlete do is, even if you have a small space, you can still make this work. Ideally, if you have a little bit bigger space, you can get them more sprinting, so it'll be a little bit more sport specific. But for a limited space, we put 2 cones out. And I instruct the athlete, they have to sprint to the first cone. They cannot slow down until they reach that first cone. After they reach that first cone, they have to slow down before they hit the second cone. So what it should look like is this. So again, in a nice athletic stance, they sprint, break down, jump, and land, making sure they're loading symmetrically, not favoring one side. They're getting good depth on it. You'll see a lot of athletes coming off of injuries where they'll come to a decel and they'll completely load the uninvolved side because they're afraid to load that side. So again, sprint, jump, lay down, react. You can also add in a timer component too to make sure that they're not dogging it and they're sprinting fully to that cone.